Shalom from Israel to all of the Daystar viewers around the world. I'm Moshe Bar Tzvi, the producer and founder of Israel Now News. We at Israel Now News are dedicated to bringing you the full story and the truth about Israel from Israel. It's written in the Holy Bible when David said in Psalm 25:5, "Lead me in your truth and teach me, for you are the God of my salvation. For you I wait all the day long." And God says in Zechariah 8:16, "These are the things that you shall do. Speak out the truth to one another. Judge with truth and judgment to peace in your gates. And always search for the truth, and the truth shall set you free." John 8:31. I hope you enjoyed the program. God bless you from Jerusalem. Shalom, shalom.
Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El-Rom.
And I'm Erin Viner.
In our top story, the Knesset has elected Reuven Rivlin as the 10th president of the State of Israel. After an extremely intense campaign, the Knesset announced that Rubi Rivlin will be moving into the president's residence. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu congratulated Rivlin and said, "You are tasked with two great missions: to unite all the layers and components of society from within, and to represent the State of Israel to the rest of the world." Rivlin was first elected to the Knesset in 1988 and since then has been a leading political figure in Israel.
The Obama administration has allegedly been holding secret talks with the Hamas terrorist organization, just 1 week after the United States announced that it would not boycott the Palestinian Unity government backed by Hamas. Reports have surfaced that U.S. officials were holding secret talks with the terrorist group for at least the last 6 months. The U.S. State Department is denying that any back-channel meetings were held, but did confirm that it will continue to provide aid to the PA. U.S. law prohibits the transfer of funds to any terrorist groups or those that maintain contact with such organizations. Hamas has long been classified as a terror group by the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, the European Union, Australia, Japan, Norway, and Russia, as well as the Middle Eastern nations of Jordan, Egypt, Turkey, and others. The decision to continue providing the Palestinian Authority with financial aid, despite its clear ties to the terror organization, has caused extreme backlash within the U.S. government. Yochanan has more on that story.
Yes, Aaron. U.S. senators and congressmen are calling the Obama administration's move to recognize the Palestinian terrorist government a clear violation of U.S. law, and that the transfer of U.S. aid to the Palestinians further defies that law. Representative Ed Royce said the Palestinian Unity government was born out of support from Hamas, a terrorist organization that continues to call for Israel's annihilation. He said Hamas is no partner for peace, nor a legitimate recipient of U.S. aid. U.S. Representative Eric Cantor said the laws of the United States prohibit assistance to terrorist organizations, and he urged his fellow lawmakers to suspend the $500 million it provides to the Palestinians annually.
In what is being called a major shift in Australian foreign policy, the country's Attorney General announced that Canberra will no longer refer to any part of Jerusalem as occupied territory. After consultations with Australia's Foreign Minister Julie Bishop, George Brandis said that the use of such terminology is freighted with pejorative implications, which is neither appropriate nor useful. Palestinian leaders were furious over the development and summoned the Australian envoy, Thomas Wilson, to demand an official explanation for the change in policy. Senior Palestinian official Saeb Erekat said that the PA will request that the Arab League and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation review the relations of the Arab and Islamic world with Australia in light of the decision. Israeli leaders welcomed Canberra's announcement, and Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman said that it is a serious consideration of the issue, which shies away from populist statement and does not attempt to appeal to and flatter radical Islamic forces.
A panel of Israeli cabinet ministers voted last week on the court's ability to sentence a murderer to life in prison without the possibility of parole. This controversial bill could exclude Palestinian terrorists from future prisoner exchange deals. Member of Knesset Ayelet Shaked, who proposed the legislation, said this bill tries to prevent extortion by terror organizations in political deals and the release of criminal murderers who get relief in the conditions of their incarceration. The cabinet passed the measure by a vote of 15 in favor and 5 against.
Retired Egyptian military chief Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has been sworn in as Egypt's new president after receiving nearly 97% of the vote. Egypt has been in a state of violent upheaval for the past 3 years after a popular revolution ousted former Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak in 2011. Mohamed Morsi of the terrorist Muslim Brotherhood Party quickly took control of the Egyptian government, but was also toppled within a year. Since that time, the Egyptian army has cracked down on the Muslim Brotherhood, as well as al-Qaeda-linked forces in the Sinai Peninsula, creating a violent response against Egyptian security forces. Israel has remained reserved over Sisi's election, although analysts believe that the development could usher in an era of more peaceful times between the two nations.
The Israeli Ministry of Absorption and Immigration has approved $100 million in emergency funds to help European Jews immigrate to Israel. The action was taken in the face of rising anti-Semitism throughout Europe. The ministry approved the allocation of the money to encourage European Jews, especially those living in the Ukraine, to make Aliyah. Families will be given support in the form of financial aid, absorption assistance, and special help in finding employment in Israel.
Israeli police carried out a raid of the Jerusalem offices of Palestine TV last week. The network has been under investigation for inciting the Arab public to instigate violence against Israel. A spokesperson for the Israeli police said that the search was carried out as part of an ongoing probe into the content of programs filmed at the studio, and that 3 employees were arrested, questioned, and released. We here at Israel Now News have reported extensively on the Palestinian use of the media to indoctrinate and incite the Arab public, while also covering the particularly concerning trend of using cartoon characters to teach Palestinian children hatred toward Jews. This latest development reveals that, despite agreements to amend their programming, the Palestinians continue to use the media as a tool to brainwash the general population.
Iranian officials have issued new warnings to the United States. According to Israel's Channel 2 television, a high-level Iranian official threatened the Diego Garcia Air Base in the Indian Ocean. Majatba Dual-Nuri, a senior member of the Revolutionary Guards, said in the case of a mistake by the United States, its military bases in Bahrain and the Indian Ocean will not be safe from Iranian missiles. Israeli officials have long warned that Iran has already created long-range missiles capable of reaching Israel, but Tehran continues investing in missile technology in order to strike at greater distances. This has led experts to believe that Iran is preparing to target the United States. The release of sanctions against the rogue Islamic Republic in exchange for pretending to negotiate with the West has freed Iran from financial constraints and allowed it to continue progressing towards building a nuclear weapon.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met last week with the brave border guards who thwarted 2 recent potentially deadly terror attacks, telling them that we will never know how many lives they've saved. Alert police officers stopped a terrorist wearing an explosives belt at the Tapuach Junction in Samaria last week, and just days later, a crazed gunman was captured at the same checkpoint. 1 border guard was injured in the shooting that ensued. Netanyahu praised the officers, saying that their primary mission is to protect the citizens of Israel and themselves. Time and time again, he said, "You have proven an uncanny ability to protect us. Until peace is achieved, we will continue to strengthen you, our security forces, so that you can continue to protect the state of Israel."
The Israeli ambassador to America has formally called on the Obama administration to move the United States Embassy to Jerusalem. Ron Dermer told a group of distinguished congressmen and political leaders that it is time Washington acknowledged Jerusalem as Israel's undivided capital and relocate the U.S. Embassy there. Dermer told guests attending the Congressional Israel Allies Caucus's celebration of Jerusalem Day that the decision to move the embassy to Jerusalem would be a statement in favor of truth, and if we have that type of truth, if we make clear to the world the connection of the Jewish people to the Jewish land and the connection of the Jewish people to its capital, Jerusalem, then we would be laying a very strong, very powerful cornerstone for peace. The Israeli ambassador concluded by saying, Jerusalem is the heart and soul of the Jewish people. It is the center of our religious life and of our national life, and it will never be divided.
A team of American and Israeli doctors have revealed a revolutionary new treatment for skin cancer, and their findings were recently presented at an international conference on cancer research in Chicago. According to the head of research and treatment of melanoma at Sheba Medical Center in Israel, Professor Jacob Schechter, the team has discovered a miracle cure for skin cancer. The medication has been tested over the past 10 years and reportedly yields astounding results in patients suffering from the potentially terminal disease. 69% of the patients who used the drug, which works with the immune system to recognize the cancer and attack it, survived the first year, and 63% survived 18 months. Without treatment, most patients suffering end-stage melanoma die within 5 months. The results are so profound that the FDA has approved the drug for compassionate use, and it will be given without charge to patients suffering from this terrible condition. According to Professor Schechter, physicians are on their way to turning melanoma into a treatable chronic disease, and that they are also seeing positive results in the treatment of bladder, head, neck, and lung cancers. And that concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask Thesaurus with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask Thesaurus. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, and we're here once again in a beautiful day in Jerusalem on our rooftop studio. My guest today is Dr. Ephraim Zuroff, the director of the Israel office of the Simon Wiesenthal Center. Dr. Zuroff, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
Dr. Zuroff, tell our viewers a little about what is the Simon Wiesenthal Center.
Simon Wiesenthal Center was founded in 1977 by Rabbi Marvin Heyer and is what you would call a classical Jewish defense organization which fights for the rights of Jewish people all over the world, combats anti-Semitism, and is actively involved in the fight against the delegitimization of Israel. But it also has an additional task, a special task you would say, which is to continue the work of the legendary Nazi hunter Simon Wiesenthal and to try and bring the last Nazi war criminals alive and unprosecuted to the bar of justice.
Now you're in charge of the Israel office of the Simon Wiesenthal Center. How does that office differ from the host office in the United States of America?
Our office is unique because we have three special tasks. One is the efforts to try and find and bring to justice Nazi war criminals. The second is that we are actively involved in the fight against what I call Holocaust distortion, which is the efforts, primarily in post-communist Eastern Europe, to try and rewrite the narrative of World War II and the Holocaust, to try and promote the canard, the lie of equivalency between Nazi crimes and communist crimes. And the danger is that these efforts, which are also designed to hide the crimes committed by local perpetrators in Eastern Europe, will undermine the efforts that have been invested and have been hereto successful in convincing the world that the Holocaust is a very, very important event, not only for the Jewish people, the primary victims, but also for the entire world.
Now you're known as the official Nazi hunter for the Simon Wiesenthal Center. Tell me, what does that entail?
When I'm asked what my job is, I always say that I'm 1/3 detective, 1/3 historian, and 1/3 political lobbyist. In other words, my job is to physically find these people, that's the detective part, to help find evidence, whether it's witnesses or documents, to help build a case against these people, and then to try and ensure that they will be brought to justice. Now, a major obstacle that we face in our task is the lack of political will in many countries to bring Nazi war criminals to justice. And the best way to describe it, to explain it, is to compare a 90-year-old Nazi war criminal with a serial killer. If a serial killer were on the loose in any one of these countries, in Europe or South America or elsewhere, I can assure the police will be making every effort to try and find this person and bring him to justice and put him in jail where they belong. Because there's a likelihood this person is going to strike again. But what is the likelihood of a 90-year-old Nazi war criminal killing anybody? The likelihood is zero. And these countries are aware of it. So they understand that in a certain sense, all they have to do is just wait it out, ignore the Simon Wiesenthal Center and nudniks like me, and they will be spared the embarrassment, the expense, the whole, everything that's involved in such trials. So my job is to convince them that it is extremely important, and that in that respect, people will know about physical pollution, but there's also what I call moral pollution. If a country ignores a Nazi war criminal and refuses or does everything possible not to bring them to justice, that is something, a form of moral pollution, and that is dangerous, just as dangerous, if not more dangerous, than physical pollution.
So today, as you mentioned, the Nazi war criminals are in their 90s. Is there still an active task to try to hunt these people down and bring them to justice?
I always say that people without a conscience live longer, and apparently it's true of Nazi war criminals as well. And I can just give you an example. About 3 years ago, we found a Nazi war criminal, Hungarian Nazi war criminal, who'd been a commander of a ghetto in a city called Košice, which today Slovakia, then Hungarian occupied. And he sent over 15,700 Jews to be murdered in Auschwitz. We found him living in Budapest. He was still driving his own car. And obviously there's no reason to ignore this person just because his date of birth was 1915.
You recently wrote a book called Operation Last Chance. Tell us a little bit about that.
The book is basically two things. It's my story, and I also tell about the work that I do. And it's very interesting because a lot of people often come to me and say, wow, you're living my dream. When I was growing up, I wanted to be a Nazi hunter. I wanted to find them, bring them to justice. And it's very often children or grandchildren of survivors. But to be perfectly honest, that was not my dream. My dream was actually to be the first Orthodox Jew to play in the NBA. But unfortunately, there are two things. One is you can't be an Orthodox Jew in the NBA, but even more important was, of course, the fact that I wasn't good enough. But in any event, I was always very interested in Jewish history, and especially in the history of the Holocaust. I was very active, political activist on campus, Soviet Jewry for Israel, and that got me very interested in the historical events that had preceded my birth, and especially the Holocaust. And I came to Israel, made Aliyah, did graduate work here, did an MA and a PhD in history of the Holocaust. But a turn of events basically sort of diverted me from being a researcher or a professor into being a Nazi hunter. So I happened to be in the right place at the right time, right about the time that the United States government discovered that Nazi war criminals were living in the United States, and they began efforts to bring them to justice. I was working for 2 years at the Wiesenthal Center in Los Angeles, met Simon Wiesenthal, was asked by the Office of Special Investigations of the U.S. Justice Department to assist them in their efforts, and then when I returned to Israel, I worked for them as a researcher, and later on a discovery that I made of how to use immigration records created by the Red Cross after the war to track down Nazis basically turned into a gold mine where I was able to find the immigration escape destinations of thousands of Nazi war criminals. And I went back to the Wiesenthal Center, and they agreed to set up an office in Jerusalem and make a determined campaign to try and convince other countries like Australia, Canada, UK, New Zealand to bring the Nazi war criminals living in those countries to justice, and to set up special offices to do so. And all the rest is history. Dr.
Zuroff, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
My message to them is very simple. One, that it's extremely important to continue to try and bring these people to justice, these Nazi war criminals to justice, as long as it's possible. We owe it to the victims. Old age doesn't turn mass murderers into righteous Gentiles. And the importance of the fight for truth, for the truth of the narrative of the Holocaust, and the fight against anti-Semitism.
Thank you, Dr. Zuroff, for being on the show, and thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
This is Jerusalem, Israel's capital city. It's an ancient and modern treasure that is beyond belief. There's a little bit of Israel in all of us. Come find the Israel in you.
Up next, shining light from Israel.
half a mile off the Israeli coast beneath that buoy.
We have 3 pipes coming out.
This plant is sucking in seawater through giant tubes, turning the Mediterranean into the national tap. It's called desalination, and it's become a multi-billion-dollar industry, attracting the likes of GE and Siemens, growing at 40% a year by some estimates. This 28-acre plant in Ashkelon, an hour south of Tel Aviv, is the largest in the world and provides 13% of Israel's drinking water. Its operator, Israel Desalination Enterprises, can desalinate a cubic meter of water for just under 60 cents and is being called a model for an increasingly thirsty world.
This technology these days is growing up.
It's not an inexpensive process. The seawater is drawn and filtered 24/7 through a room the size of an airplane hangar. It's then compressed through thousands of filtered tubes that separate salty water from fresh. Shai Dreesen is the plant manager. It kind of looks like science fiction, a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
But you say you call it a masterpiece.
It's a masterpiece, for sure.
By that point, the water is so pure, they actually have to add limestone like this and other minerals to make it taste like drinking water again. They get this from the Dead Sea. The plant's input and energy costs are rising, but it remains profitable. The company says it's the Asian market that will truly be an industry game changer.
Because they require good quality water and the resources are getting contaminated.
As the production line ends, the salty water is dumped out to sea, the good stuff piped to Israeli households. And this is the final product?
Yes.
Sure looks the same.
Okay, l'chaim.
Cheers. It's delicious.
Anywhere else, this would be a vacation by a lake. But this is the Sea of Galilee. The wonders of Israel are beyond belief. There's a little bit of Israel in all of us. Come find the Israel in you.
Please stay tuned for the ICEJ report from the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem.
What an exciting place to be, what an exciting place to visit. I'm talking to you about the land of Israel, the place where Jesus was born, and Jesus did his full ministry and went up to heaven. We'll come back one day to this very same land. Now you have the opportunity to come and visit this place in the summer tour 2014. This place is colorful, it's tasty, it opens the Bible in a new way, and it is very diverse. I will give you a small tour. Now we're in the desert. The beach, culture, history, big city life, awesome food. Israel is not just camels, hummus, and desert. Israel is also modern society, and one of the examples is the city of Tel Aviv, having beautiful beaches like this. In the summertime, these beaches are packed, and you can enjoy also this beautiful beach when we come to the summer tour, to this exact same place. So come along the summer tour 2014 to enjoy the land of Israel.
Coming up next, special Aliyah report from Ben Gurion Airport, Israel.
What you see behind us is today a fulfillment of biblical prophecy. Behind me, Bnei Menashe from the country of Israel are arriving, and you are seeing today as prophecy is being fulfilled in front of your eyes. The Bnei Menashe are returning after 2,700 years back to their ancient homeland.
Therefore prophesy and say to them, Thus says the Lord God, Behold, I will open your graves and raise you from your graves, O people, and I will bring you into the land of Israel. And you shall know that I am the Lord when I open your graves and raise you from your graves, O my people.
And this is taking place today because Christians around the world were willing to listen to the voice of God and were contributing financially to pay for the flights of those Bnei Menashe to come back today to Israel. The prophet Isaiah says in Isaiah chapter 49 verse 22, he says, "Behold, I am lifting up my hand to the nations, and they shall bring back your people from the four corners of this world, and they will bring them back to the land of Israel." Today, Gentile Christians around the world became part of this fulfillment of biblical prophecy of returning the Bnei Menashe to the land of Israel.
In the late 1970s, a few individuals from a small people group located in northeast India began to research the origins of their religious traditions and their ancestry. Their research led them to discover an ancestral connection to Israel. Under Persian rule, their ancestors traveled through the Silk Route to modern-day Afghanistan, Tibet, China, and finally to southeast India in the midst of Myanmar and Bangladesh. This group, called the Bnei Menashe or Sons of Menashe, are believed to be descendants from the lost tribe of Manasseh. Today, you can take part in the fulfillment of the ancient biblical promise to return the people of Israel to their homeland. The ICEJ has committed to sponsor future flights from northern India to Israel for an additional 250 Bnei Menashe. The flight costs for 250 Bnei Menashe to return is roughly $250,000 US. For many of the Bnei Menashe, returning to the land of the Bible is the fulfillment of a lifelong dream, and a gift of $1,000 can help make that dream a reality for one of these individuals. No gift is too small. Every donation we receive to assist us in this important work is greatly appreciated, so please give generously.
Please help us in this coming weeks and months to bring more Bnei Menashe to the land of Israel. Become part of this modern day miracle of the prophetic fulfillment of ancient scriptures in our time, and help us with $1,000 per person to help them to return back to the land of Israel.
To make a donation, visit our website at www.icej.tv. or send a check to ICEJ, P.O. Box 1192, Jerusalem 91010, Israel.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El-Rom.
And I'm Erin Viner, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.